Good evening and welcome to our webinar, How to Budget for a Timber Frame in 2021. I would like to thank Timbercraft for sponsoring tonight's event. For more than 40 years, Timbercraft has achieved the highest level of satisfaction by creating homes that fulfill your dreams in both form and function. Timbercraft's goal is to help you create a place that is built for life. Visit timbercraft.com to learn more and view their timber frame home plans.
Timber framing is one of the oldest styles of construction in the world. In fact, it dates all the way back to the Old Testament. That's why we traveled to Michigan and met up with one of the world's greatest timber frame manufacturers, Timbercraft. For over 40 years, Timbercraft has been perfecting the art of timber framing with state-of-the-art design and manufacturing techniques. Timbercraft has taken it to a whole new level.
Here at Timbercraft, we are architectural craftsmen that design, manufacture, and install heavy timber frame structures, both for residential and commercial use. Our company was founded in 1978, and our mission is to honor our creator and our craft. What makes Timbercraft a very unique and amazing company is we do a type of construction that's over 2,000 years old. However, we've modernized it. Now we've brought it into our manufacturing facilities, so it's a controlled environment with CNC equipment. We actually service the entire country and we build internationally. When you build in different geographic areas, you have different constraints that you have to deal with. On the West Coast, you have earthquakes and seismics, or in the mountains, you have heavy snow load. We have the experience to help our customers go through that process and bring their ideas to life and build their dream timber frame home.
With a full in-house design and engineering team, Timbercraft is able to design and build structures anywhere in North America. Their focus is to design a timber frame structure that fits each individual client's budget.
Every timber frame that we manufacture is going to be very unique because our clientele's wants and needs are very different, and we're customizing each project for our customers. Some of our customers have been blessed with multi-million-dollar budgets, and some of our other customers have much more modest budgets. But one of the great things about a timber frame is anyone could have these big exposed beams. The way that we achieve that is through a process called hybrid. A hybrid timber frame is where you focus the timber framing in high-use areas of the home, possibly the kitchen, the dining room, the great room, the master bedroom, a covered porch, the main areas in the house where you actually live. Then as you get into other areas like the breezeway, closets, a guest bedroom, go ahead and conventionally build those.
With their unique style and attention to detail, Timbercraft's quality and craftsmanship is unmatched by others in their industry.
At Timbercraft, we're dedicated to a particular style of mortise and tenon joinery called the house joint. The house joint is where, instead of just the tenon going into a beam, the whole member goes in and then the tenon. And the reason that we do that is as wood dries, it wants to shrink and twist. And when it's in a pocket, you don't see that shrinkage. And if it wants to twist, it can't actually go anywhere. So the process that we do in manufacturing is we take and hand select each and every timber. Then all that detailed joinery is milled on our CNC machines, but that's only part of the process. After that, our skilled craftsmen go ahead, take these timbers, and we pre-fit or pre-assemble the entire structure, front to back and left to right. We want to make sure that it's a very tight fit and that it's perfectly accurate. And once we're done with that, we go ahead, disassemble the entire structure, label it, stain it and ship it however the customer wants, and then at that point, it's off to be built. But the key to this whole process is our house joint. It ensures that our Timbercraft timber frame is going to look exactly the same today as it does 100, 200, or 300 years from now.
As one of the world's greatest timber frame design and build firms, Timbercraft buildings are built for life.
Our speaker for this evening is Dave Marcum, Vice President of Timbercraft. Dave has more than 23 years of experience in the timber frame, log, and SIP industries, and has been involved in countless numbers of timber frame raisings in the building of log and conventional stick-built homes. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that we will save time at the end of the event to answer your questions. Questions can be submitted in the question area on the right of your screen in the control panel. Dave, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot, Amanda. Appreciate that. We'll get started. Frame in 2021. First, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background about Timbercraft. We're founded in 1978, so we've been around just over 40 years. We design both residential and commercial structures. Our plant has kind of the unique ability to have 2 Hundigger CNC machines. So really what that means to you is just more productivity and faster turnaround times on your timber frame. And we also have a both Doug fir and oak model home to show. So anytime you're out in our area, we're welcome to have you come by and meet with us and actually tour you through a house locally as well. See some of our work. Okay, we offer factory tours. We actually do this about twice a year. We'll have a nice little seminar, go through the factory, and also go through some homes in the area. Our next one is coming up this Saturday, April 17th. So if you're going to be in the area and it comes to Michigan, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you. I still have some openings left over. If that one doesn't work out, we also have some of our different homes across the country we're going to be opening up to. Saturday, May 15th is going to be out in Omaha, Nebraska. If you are interested in that one, just either use the phone number below or the email and drop me a line, and we'll get you signed up for that. Just the following week, we're going to be out in the D.C. area. Actually, just over the border into West Virginia for a beautiful home we built out there. That'll be May 22nd. And then 2 weeks later, we'll be out in northern Wisconsin. So we'll be on the road for a bit here. If any of these are within a few hours of you and you'd like to join us and see some of our work, please reach out to us and we'll lock you in a seat for that. And with that, I'll get started. Okay. Really what Timbercraft offers is we have actually 5 different products that is really our core business. One is in-house design, and we'll talk about that more towards the very end of this broadcast, but it's very, very crucial to the producing a custom-built home that's built for life. Secondly, timber frames. That's really our core business that we're known for. We actually fabricate and pre-fit those, finish them right here in Tecumseh, Michigan, and ship them throughout the country. Pre-finished tongue and groove for the ceilings and structural floors. We'll pre-finish those right here as well and load it right up with your frame and be sent out on the same trailer. We have the unique ability of offering R40 walls and roof structures. This is like living in a Yeti cooler, folks. Super, super energy efficient. And we also offer installations either in the 4-man crew or 2-man console to come out and work with you and your local general contractors. So basically from concept to the shell end, we're there with you working all the way along. We'll also not stop there, but if you have questions down the road, any of your subs, the GC, you can always reach out to us too and we'll help work through any questions or any issues. Okay, what does it cost to build a timber frame in 2021? That's one thing that we've really had a lot of interest in lately, and a lot of people are questioning. They want to know what are the real costs these days, because everyone knows that the costs have gone up. First of all, we have to determine, are we talking about a full frame or a hybrid? Now, full frame is the way that timber frames have been built for hundreds of years. If you notice in this picture, every corner basically has a post. This is a full structural skeleton, if you will, of the house. Okay, and this is the way the timber frame homes have been built for hundreds of years, where they had, the structure itself has been completely the timber frame supporting it. Okay, typically what we do nowadays is called a hybrid. Hybrid means basically you can do one room, the whole house, or anywhere in between. You can really focus on those high use areas or the areas that you want to spend the most time into, and help save some of the cost of putting timbers in other areas that are not as important to you. For example, we can build you the coolest timber frame laundry room in your state, but who's going to see it? So hybrid allows us the opportunity to put a timber frame in just about anyone's budget. If you've got an actual budget that's where you can build a new house, we'll find a way to make it work, even if it's as little as 10% of your total budget. Okay, hybrid, like I said, there again, that's the buzzword in the industry. This is about 90% of the projects out there. There again, hybrid simply means you can do one room, the whole house, or anywhere in between. On the project on the left, that was out in California, you see this is a reclaimed materials project we did, and that center core, that wow factor, is in the great room. And it actually is being stick built on the side of it. On the one on the right, this is actually a hybrid built in North Carolina with the Appalachian Mountains in the background. Beautiful views, and this is going to be fully structurally insulated panels to shell this one in. And we're going to go into that a little bit further in the next couple of slides. Hybrids with SIPs. Now, what SIPs are we call them, SIPs is an acronym for structurally insulated panels. And essentially what it is pre-built walls and roof systems that are custom built just for your house. And the beauty in that is when it comes out, it goes up at about half the time of trying to stick build a house. It's about 5 times stronger and about 3 times more energy efficient. Now, if you look closely on these SIPs, you'll see that the windows are cut out already for you. Now, we leave the interior skin in so you can keep it weather tight until you get the windows in, until you're ready to do that, and then you just cut that interior skin out, and it's already been bucked in for you there. Also, you may notice a few blue boxes throughout the walls and such. Those are electrical boxes that are built in ahead of time. Any headers, any structural posts, any electrical you're going to put into it, we'll design this in ahead of time and actually have that in there for you. So that'll definitely save you some time and some money on your electrical as well. If you look at this particular model, this is one of our Clarkston models. If you've been on our website, you've seen a lot of different versions of these. We've done over 50 versions in the last 20 years. Okay, this is a hybrid model where the center core is fully timber framed. Then you see the tongue and groove over top of that, and then these beams sticking up and going left and right. Those are actually structural ridges and purlins that will help support these panels and create that vaulted ceiling throughout. This is actually going to create a very, very economical and very, very efficient shell to heat and cool. It's going to cut your energy bills typically by about 2/3. We can also build a hybrid with conventional construction. You'll see the center core of this has the SIPs on it, but then this particular home was just going to have bedrooms on the one side, kitchen on the other. The client did not want vaulted ceilings in those areas. They're on kind of a tight budget, and so they wanted to focus just in that great room. So this was built more conventionally, right on the timber frame as well. Okay. Another thing we do is what we call trimbers or timber framing. What this is putting cosmetic timbers in just specific areas of the house, mainly to give it more wow factor. This project here is actually a remodel. It had an existing house, and there was about a 4,000 square foot addition to it that was all timber frame. And this is an area in the original part of the house built in the 1840s. But what we did here was actually added some posts, some knee braces, and some rafters, or in this case floor joists in the ceiling, to kind of tie those areas in together so that when you're walking from one part of the house to the other, you know, from 1840s to 2006, it all felt like the same house. Also, you notice this one we actually did some carvings into as well. We can do that for you. The next one is another even simpler addition to this house. This is the office, and this is more of the trimbers or timber framing in the ceiling. Essentially right here, we just have 4 beams that are going across the ceiling, doing nothing more than holding themselves up. But it really adds a lot of character and kind of helps tie in the cost, or tie in the look of this house with the rest of the house at very little cost. Remember, in timber framing, there's 2 costs associated with basically these timber frames. One is the very, very large. The second is all the joinery and custom handwork that goes along with it. As you can see, these ones here have simple hand cuts on the ends, just straight cuts with the circular saw. So these are very, very cost effective, and will add a lot of flair for very little cost. What you need to consider when buying your land and establishing your budget. Okay, really what it comes down to is everybody out there has a budget. We just need to work towards it and make it work for you. So how does the property fit into your overall budget? You really need to be careful about this, because this is generally always the first step. finding that right piece of land, that right property that's close to your family and close to the friends or the lakes or whatever it is you want to build by, and fitting, not only in your budget but also in your lifestyle. One thing that you need to keep in mind is if you buy a nice big chunk of property, 20 acres or something, is how far back are you looking to build? Because remember, there's a cost associated with how far back that driveway is going to be and other electrical and such. Do you have utilities on site? A lot of our clients say, hey, I just found this great site. It's already got a well and septic in it. It's got power to the site. That's a bonus. If you can find that and it's in the area you're looking to build on that site, then you've really hit a home run on that one. Next, what's the terrain like? Obviously, the terrain of the property is going to make a big impact on what the costs are for the site improvements. If you're building in a flat cornfield in Ohio, it's going to be more cost effective than building on the side of a mountain in North Carolina. Okay, so these are all things you want to take in consideration when you're before you buy the property. Okay, what are the costs associated with the location? A good example about that is I just mentioned building on the side of a mountain in North Carolina. Several years ago, we did 6 projects in the Boone, Banner, Elk, and Burnsville area of North Carolina one year. And the one, I guess, key to all 6 of these, they were all on the side of mountains. So we had to put in foundations with very, very tall back walls to support this. We had some front walls that were 4 foot, the back walls that went as high as 22 foot because of the location and the terrain. So these are definitely things you want to keep in mind when you're looking at that location, is to keep that in your thought process because it's going to associate to the budget. Okay. The 2 major components of cost when it comes to building the home, there's 2 different variables basically. There's your fixed costs and there's your variable costs. Now we're going to talk about the fixed costs first because that's kind of falls right in line with what we have been talking about, is the land. Okay, so the cost of the land itself. You always want to kind of have your budget to start with to get an idea and how that land fits in that budget. Years ago, I had a client come to me and he said, yeah, we're looking to build a house. We've got a $600,000 budget. I said, well, that's a pretty good budget for the house you're looking to build, 15 years ago. And they said, well, but the property, we just found it. We bought that. That's 20 acres in Colorado, and it cost us $400,000. So now they had $200,000 left to work with. They overbought in land and couldn't afford to build what they wanted to build on there. So you definitely got to keep that variable in mind, because it is a fixed cost. When you buy the land, there's really no way to, unless you're going to sell off a portion of it, there's no way to reduce that cost. Second is a driveway. How far back are you looking to be? Are you going to be 50 feet from the road, or are you going to be 1,800 feet from the road? Okay, there's lots of different considerations when you're looking at where that perfect spot is to build this. Utilities are another thing. If you have utilities on site already and they're close to where you want to build, that's going to be more cost effective. If you need to bring everything back, a mile back into your property, that's going to take a big bite out of your budget. So keep these things in mind. Site prep. There again, if you notice this site here, it's got a nice gradual grade. It's perfect for a walkout basement. So this is going to work out really well. While the backside of this picture you can't see, it's looking down into a nice valley with a lake right there. So this is a perfect site for a walkout. But there again, you can see they've already spent some money. They've already had excavators in there digging that out and kind of prepping that for the initial site location. Okay. Here's a fixed cost example. We had a client that wanted to build, and we designed this home for them. And then when we found out where they'd actually designed the home before they had found the property, found what they felt like was a perfect property, and they designed the home within their budget. Everything was good. But then when you look at this little example here, the driveway was 1,300 foot long. There were no utilities back there. There's no electric. There was no water, there was no phone, cable, internet, those types of things. So the developmental cost of getting a driveway and all those things back to this 1,300 feet was over $50,000. And it really put a strain on them because it really wasn't something they'd considered up front. So that's part of the reason we try to bring this up front. You know, Timbercraft, it's really about the whole process, not just the timber frame itself. We need to make this work for you, because if this doesn't work and fit in your budget, you can't afford to build, nobody wins. Okay, we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's a win-win situation for you. Now, the variable cost is cost that actually you can control. So there's 4 different areas that are kind of variable costs, and that can control the delta to get you in the right budget. So the first one is the size of the home. Of course, square footage. The more square footage you have, the more the home's going to cost. The second thing would be architectural complexity. Now, building a rectangle or a box is going to be the most cost effective with 4 corners. So when you start getting into some of the things you see here on the left, where they've got the big arched windows and arched dormers coming out across there, there's a lot of jogs in and out on the foundation of this house. Each time that house makes a turn like that, it's getting more exponentially expensive from the foundation all the way to the roof. So definitely things you want to consider. We'll talk about how you can design the house that you want to build and the style you want, and how can you, maintain a budget that's going to work for you. Next is the construction materials and the timber frame content. So like we said earlier, in timber framing, you can do one room, you can do the whole house, or anywhere in between. Now, what you're seeing on the right here is a very modestly timber framed kitchen and dining room area. Okay, very cost effective, and yet adding a lot of timber and style throughout those particular areas of the house. And of course, the last is level of finishes. That's really the toughest part about this whole thing is when you sit down with a designer or a builder, is you really got to talk about what's important to you in level of finishes. Because like with the Clarkstons, for example, I mentioned earlier, we built over 50 different versions of that, and I've seen some go as low as about $130 a square foot 15 years ago, which is now probably $200 a square foot, to upwards of $450 a square foot. And really, in most of those cases, our timber frame panel package didn't change too much. Really what it came down to is what kind of finishes on the interior and exterior are they putting into this home? What kind of levels are they looking for? If you're looking for the top of the line everything, you're going to have to keep that in mind and work the delta to make it work for you. Now, when you say, what do you mean the delta? Well, this is what we call the turnkey delta. Basically what it is, it's kind of like a 3-legged stool. And these are the things that all have to be balanced out to make the project work. The budget, of course, like we said, everybody has a budget. Whether some budgets are larger than others, you just got to work with what you have. You got to base that off of your square footage and your needs and what you can afford, and also the levels. So if you design a house, it's okay our budget and the square foot's right, and when you go put the level of finishes in, all of a sudden, wow, we really wanted these high-end finishes, and it's pushing us up out of our budget. What can we do to adjust that? Well, you can either tweak the square footage and try to shrink things down a little bit, or you can increase the budget. So basically, these are the 3 different variables that you have available that we can work with you with during design to make sure that you have a successful project. Now we're talking a little bit about building costs. Building costs, if you can see here, this is a building cost index that I pulled off recently off of the internet, just to kind of give you a base form of this. Actually, since about 2012, the economy's picked back up in residential building and been very, very consistent all the way through 2020. So it's really been rising over the last 8-9 years. Now, here's the bad news. Okay, lumber prices have skyrocketed more than 180%, according to NAHBnow.com. April of 17th of 2020, they said that they've increased 180% just since then. So in less than a year's time, I've gone up over $25,000 to build the same house we were building last year. And that's just due to supply and demand issues, increasing costs for subs and of course materials. So things we have to keep in mind and kind of balance out when we're building today. Okay. Really what you need to start with is a baseline. And here's the toughest part about my job in this, or anybody that's actually trying to do this, is, people, the first question to ask is, what's this going to cost us? And it really depends on where you're building, because, building can vary so much in a cornfield in Idaho versus building in Colorado or building in the dells of Wisconsin. So it really depends on where exactly you're building. And really the best way to get some kind of a baseline, at least to start this, is in the area you're looking to build, I would start looking at some custom home shows, or if they have like a parade of homes, that'll give you a good idea. You can go in and get an idea of the fit and finish of the home and the level of the finishes, and understand what a kind of a baseline is for that cost. And it doesn't necessarily have to be timber frame. More than likely it's going to be just custom homes, but it gives you a place to start with, and then you can integrate in the timber frame in the areas you like and help try to make that a successful project. Once you get a baseline down and say, okay, the baseline is about so much, that gives you something to work with, because like I said, it really can vary anywhere from $100 to $300 a square foot in different parts of the country. Okay, there's three options here on how to price these out. And the first one's called the blended square foot model. Okay, this one is probably the easiest number to throw out, but the most difficult one to be accurate on, because it's based off of just the square footage and blended square footage. So you're saying basically you're asking your builder, how much do you charge a square foot to build? If they can throw out a number and say, I can guarantee you this, I can build this house for this much per square foot, they're not being real honest with you, because the thing is, they don't know your wants, they don't know your needs, and if they know what you're building, that helps, but it can really change as well. So this is the part that everybody says, 15 years ago, everybody wanted to build for $100 a square foot because that's what they thought it cost to build. Okay. One thing to remember when the blended square foot is, they're using that same number for the above ground, which is the livable area, the basements, the porches, the garages, bonus rooms, any of those different buildable areas, they're building them together. And that, what this does is helps homogenize that square foot cost and looks like it brings it down. The fact of the matter is, no one has a crystal ball and can tell you what's going to happen in the commodities market and can tell you what it costs to build your house just by throwing out a square foot number. It really is not the best way to go. Okay. The blends, like I said, the blended square foot is going through and leveling it out, that cost over the first and second floors, the decks, the garage, all these different things. So it's going to give you the perception that costs are actually lower than what they are in some segments and higher on others. Okay, here's a good example. This builder says, hey, I build for $145 a square foot, and Joe client here had a design built up, and their design was just shy of 1,800 square foot. He said $145, that's $260,710. We're going to finish the basement at 1,871 square foot, the garage, the covered porches, and the loft, and all at $145 a square foot. That's going to total out at $795,760. Okay, he very well may be able to build this house for that, but those numbers don't jive. It costs the same to build a loft as it does to build finished space. It doesn't cost the same to build a garage as it does your living room. So there's a lot of different areas that are not accurate about this. The next one is called the long model. Now, the long model can be done a couple different ways. There's several books out there and great digital resources available nowadays to help your home, help understand the process, because that's really what it is. It's about the process, starting and knowing what it takes from A to Z to get you there. And I know a lot of these TV shows, HGTV and all these show us, make it look pretty simple. In 30 minutes, they've either built or remodeled a house and went off without a hitch. So it looks pretty good. One thing you really need to understand is what the process of this is. And not to say that if you've got a construction background or you've got a good understanding of that, you couldn't be your own general contractor, but it's definitely, the contractors make their money for a reason. It's their knowledge, their expertise, and knowing how to miss the pitfalls. Okay, but there's also, like I said, good reading out there as well. Okay, there's hundreds of books in there, and a lot of them have how to hire a general contractor or become your own, how to build your home and go through the process. Really, what it comes down to is the different pieces and parts, or the steps, if you will. There's also some subscription-based programs out there, like Home Cost, which actually will take your information and input it into a computer, and they'll spit it back out based on zip code, based on how high-end finishes you're looking to use. Your challenge as far as the trains and things like that go. So it tries to give you a nice detailed number on what all these numbers should come out at. And they can be very accurate in some areas, and some areas not. Really what it comes down to is how accurate the program is in that particular area, and the weight that they put on that particular item. So if they say that build in this area, it starts out a foundation start out at $30 a square foot. In this area, they build out at $60 a square foot. It's just going to be how accurate that information is they put in. But it is definitely one way to go, that you can go through and get all the nuts and bolts and simplify your system. Just cost you a few bucks in the process. Third way is what we call Timbercraft. We call it build it backwards. Now, build it backwards is a kind of a little term I came up with, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, I guess. And really what it came down to is my thoughts when I was building was, how do I make this work for everybody? Because we had a lot of clients that would come in with beautiful drawings from architects and said, this is what we want to build. And we'd go through and price it all out and have a general contractor involved and get all, spend lots of time on all the finishes and figuring out what things were, and come to find out, wow, it came in, double the budget or 40% over the budget, whatever it was. Clients would say, well, why didn't the designer or the architect, we told him what our budget is, why didn't he design that to fit our budget? Well, in a lot of cases, they don't know. If that's something that they don't deal with on a regular basis, especially when it comes to timber frame, they don't know how to design this to make this work. And it came to me, I thought, what the simplest way to do this would be is to take the outside shell of the house that you want designed. Let's figure that cost first. And once we get that figured out, what's it cost for the walls and roof on this one? We can take that much out of the budget and figure out what we have to work with. Now, definitely building it backwards, or any of these processes, you're going to have a budget. You need to start somewhere. You got to have that target to shoot for. Okay. The next step is, from our experience, and I've been doing this, like I said, almost 24 years, is it's going to be about 20 to 25% is all you want to allocate out of your budget for your timber frame and your SIP portion of that. The reason is, if you go in and use 50% of your budget up on the timber frame and panels and build this big house, that you try to build the other half, or the other 50%, you're going to run out of money. Okay, either got to work on some challenges there, get some more money, come up with some more money some way or another, or sometimes, and I've seen cases where people couldn't finish those homes. So really, my thoughts on this and my design is let's make this work. Okay, what do we need to do? So if we say no more than 20 to 25%, for example, right here in a $600,000 budget, that gives you $125 to $150,000 to work with for your timber frame part of the investment and shell. Okay, you need that other 450 to 475 for the foundation, for the finishes, for the electrical and all the mechanicals. So, like I said, we try to keep it at a minimum part of your budget to make sure that you're going to afford to finish this out. You don't want those surprises later. This allows us, like I said, to help meet your budget. We want to meet your budget. We always say that if we don't meet your budget, nobody wins. We spend a lot of time talking back and forth. We spent money in design, working that up. We spent our time coming out to your site and checking things out. And when it's all said and done, everybody's disappointed. So, we want to feed our families. We want you to have a house you're proud of for generations. So we want to work with you to make sure that works. Okay, here's a good example to build it backwards. A typical sip enclosure for one of our Clarkstons, like I said, so many of them we've done them in Clarkstons, it's a good basis, is about 2,400 square feet, was about 70,000 for the shell or the sip panels. Okay, you break that down out of your budget, out of 150,000 you had for your package budget, 70,000 goes to sips. That leaves you 80,000 left over for your timber frame, your tongue and groove, and your install. So what we have to do is focus on those areas that the timber frame is really important to you, the areas that you want to spend the most time in. If we can do that and put this together, then we can help develop this and do some square foot data that's actually in the correct square foot cost range and help this be successful. Like, for example, this is one of our clients that built down in Tennessee. It was a very economical place to build. Their above ground living space came in at about $180 a square foot. Granted, this has been a little bit ago, so it's probably gone up some since then. Basements finished out were about $100 a square foot, so more cost effective. The garage is about the same, about $100 a square foot. And then our package covered the covered porch, the loft, the open decks, and the timber frame and TNG and SIPs. So this one came in about the same cost as the one we showed you earlier, but this is actually breaking down more realistic costs so that when you say, hey, if we need to cut a little bit out of our budget, what can we do? You can look at the different areas and see what the actual square foot costs of those areas are to get a more informed decision. Okay, you may look at this one and say, you know what? If we decided to hold off on that garage for now, we could save $80,000. That'd put us right when we're comfortable. We can always go back and build that garage later, or maybe we can come back and finish out that basement later. If we can just go into it for $40 to $50 a square foot and finish it out a couple years down the road when we're in a little better position. So, different ways we try to work with you to make this project work. Okay. Building in 2021, in my opinion, is going to be kind of the new normal. I mean, you see prices go down a little bit on materials, but they've spiked up so high in the past, and you see them come down a little bit, but they've kind of plateaued. They never really dropped way back down to what they were. And I'm kind of doubting where we're going to see costs drop down below what they were in 2019. So I guess keeping these numbers in mind, these will help set you up a little better for the actual cost of the building these days. Now, the good news is, from our perspective, heavy timbers, or the big timbers we use, have remained very, very stable. They've had very, very little board foot price increase because it's not a commodity item. With commodity items, prices are based off of supply and demand. Basically, when you get a huge demand because there's a lot of people that are out of work with incentive money in their pockets, and they want to do some little projects and build decks and additions on their house, and you don't have the materials, it's going to drive the prices up. Okay. Heavy raw materials with these big timbers have had very minimal price increase. SIPs have always been a premium product. Why? Because they're 5 times stronger, because they come pre-engineered and pre-built ahead of time, because they cut your building time in half. This is the most competitive market I've ever seen for SIP versus stick building. The cost of the stick building has gone up for not only the materials, the labor, the gas prices going back up again. So right now, the costs of SIPs make the most sense they ever have in the last 24 years that I've been doing this. And so they're going to be the only product I know that pays you back month after month, year after year, for as long as you own this house. And it's something that you'll always have a return from. The other thing is, part of the reason they are more competitive right now is SIPs only have about 20% of that commodity 2x material of stick build. So it's 80% less of the expensive materials right now, and so that's maybe a lot more cost effective. The other thing, like I said, that we talked about, it'll reduce your energy cost by 50 to 60%. A lot of people have a hard time getting their mind around that. I built my first house back 23 years ago out of SIPs, built a 2,800 square foot house. Did the worst thing you could ever do to an energy efficient house. I put in high ceilings and vaulted the whole back of that was glass because it was 50 foot off the water. And out of that 2,600 square foot house with a full basement under it, my highest heating bill ever was $84. It was cold. So definitely, energy costs are something that's important to think about in the long run. Now, it's time for a reality check. We're getting more towards the end of things here. First reality check is you just can't build a house for $150 a square foot anymore. It's just not realistic. Reality is cookie cutter homes. You see these production home builders building where they all look the same down the road. They all have the same vinyl siding, different colors maybe here or there. They're going to run $180 to $200 a square foot, sometimes more depending on the areas you're building. So that's kind of starting in the. It's a good place to get started in your mind is this is what minimums are going to be looking like on a cookie cutter home. The other thing is you always got to remember things like basements. Okay, that'll double the size of your first floor, but it is an additional cost. So keep that in mind. It's a good way to shrink the house a little bit, put a full basement underneath it, double the size of your first floor, and be more cost effective. But when you're looking at the 2,000 square foot house and then forget to put the cost of a basement in there, or garages, nobody's building 1-car garages anymore. Everybody wants 2-car, 3-car, bonus rooms, a place for the kids to go up and stay and have a playroom. Those are getting expensive. They're probably starting out about $100 a square foot. So when you add another $1,200 to a garage in this, you could be easily adding $120,000 to $150,000 from just a garage. So just got to keep this in mind. When you start adding these things to it, these are how it's going to affect your budget. Decks are additional. We'll talk about that more. Timber porches, another thing that's there again, kind of like options on a car. Okay. And stonework. Everybody likes the look of these stone columns and the stone all the way across the back of a walkout basement. But it's real easy to get $50,000 to $100,000 for the stonework if you got a walkout basement or a great big chimney. So definitely things to keep in mind. These are premium items. Okay. Now, when you're talking a fully timber frame home, really, I don't know anywhere in the country you're going to start out on a full timber frame home with less than $300 a square foot. That's going to be probably the minimal. If you go to a hybrid like this, where we're focusing on that great room area, building some of the other areas more conventional, okay, you probably can start out about $250 a square foot. It's up from that depending on where you're building. If you're building just a custom stick-built house with some timber accents, say on the outside you like a timber truss and some brackets, maybe it has a couple timber trusses on the inside to vault that ceiling. You might be able to go down as low as $220 a square foot. Those are things we can work with you on throughout the budget. So this is an example of our Clarkston. Like I said there again, this is kind of our bread and butter model that we built over 50 different versions of. And someone says, hey, I love the Clarkston. It's got a great size to it and that, what can we do with this? Well, you can do anything you like. We can make them larger, smaller. We can make them simpler. We can make them more complex. Just looking at this, there's about 15 corners to this Clarkston right here. If I was looking at this and saying, hey, I want to build this on a budget, I would certainly take this bathroom down here on the left and the master bedroom, square those corners out, actually pick up a little bit of square footage, but not get rid of those bump ins and bump outs. That'll save you some money. You could also go back to the dining room area and do something different. Maybe go straight across with that dining room area instead of that octagon style right there. That'll save you some money. So there's different ways we can approach this for you on how to make it fit in your budget. Now here again was the very first Clarkston we did. It's got a great look. It's just under 2,400 square feet. Nice wraparound porches. It's got a lot of flair to it. That's I think why it's been so popular. There's a few other examples of some other ones we've done, and you see some of the changes. A little different bent to the design in the front of this one here, and you got the windows up above that for the loft. It's got a 3-car garage. Now here's a 2-car garage going the opposite direction. It's been flipped. This has scissor-beam trusses, so you can just a different style truss you can choose as well. This is one we did out in Washington. This is actually the view of the back of the house, but that great room goes all the way through, and it has hammer beams in it, and lots of big glass across the back because it's got that $1 million view out the back. So these are as custom as every piece of property that you buy. Everything is going to be kind of one-off, but we can use that Clarkston style or as a basis to kind of start with, and if you like that look. Here's some interior pictures, okay? On the left is the kitchen, very, very cost effective. We're trying to be more cost effective on that one, just some timber framing in the kitchen, where that center core on the right is really the wow factor that makes the difference when someone walks in your front door. So that's, okay, here's another Clarkston, actually two more of them here. And you'll see one on the left stained with dark timbers, and it's actually got a lot of drywall in it, so it really opens up and it shows a lot of, you can adjust the colors by all the drywall and paint, make it look less cabiny or rustic. The one on the right, nice big timber frame trusses, those are hammer beams as well. And I really like the fact that they went with dark on the timber frame vents and trusses, and they went with light on the tongue and groove on the ceiling. I think it really helps make the timber frame pop out and be the star of the show. So definitely I'd recommend it. You very taste and stains and things like that can really change the feel and color of the house. Now the four main areas, and when it comes to square footage that you're going to pay for, number one is the main living areas, first and second floor. Okay, really there's two areas that are the most expensive areas in the house: the kitchen and the bathrooms. Who would like the bathrooms? But in a small area, you can put a lot of money into them. But these areas above ground or main living room spaces, first and second floors, is going to be your most expensive per square foot. Okay, average cost is probably going to be about $250 a square foot for these areas. Okay, now area number two is the basements. They can be unfinished basements at about $40 a square foot, or they could be finished basements. $60 a square foot for some average finishes, some design downstairs, or maybe closer to $80 a square foot if you have a full walkout with lots of windows and glass in them. Okay, so definitely you see that still a lot less expensive than at above ground. So whenever I see somebody that's working on a budget, I always try to find ways to massage the above ground down a little bit and equal that out in the basement and be more cost effective. Other garages, like I said, no one's in a one-car garage anymore. 3 cars is almost the norm. At least 2, but 2.5, 3, 4 cars sometimes. And if you notice this one, it's got a nice little pantry going in there and a mudroom area connecting to the garage. So these are average about $75 to $100 a square foot, depending on how decked out with them. They're again less expensive than the main above ground living. One area that most people don't think about is really their outdoor spaces. Everyone likes the decks. It's only about $40 a square foot, so that's actually pretty inexpensive in comparison. Some outdoor living. The covered porches and patios and pergolas, budget yourself about $75 a square foot or more, depending on how decked out you're going with it. You got to consider that as an add-on as well. Outdoor kitchens and fireplaces have become really popular in the last 10 years, and they're again, those are things that are kind of like options or add-ons, not considered in your normal square footage. Other extras would be like elevators, spas, vaults or safe room. We're doing more and more of those where people want to have a safe room in the basement in case there's a tornado, in case there's something else that happens. They like to have a safe place to go. Also, we have many enthusiasts that have their property down there. They'll have guns, so they'll have different things like that they want to protect. It's vault and safe room areas. So these are getting more and more popular. The other thing is people want to be off the grid sometimes. Solar, having gas powered or electric powered or gas powered or natural gas powered generators, being off the grid, recycling the gray water in for flushing toilets and things like that. These are great ways to be more green, but also remember those things are more expensive than building traditionally. So keep those in mind in your budget. Okay, the next part is kind of really what do we need to get started? we like what you're saying, Dave. We like the looks of these things. We've really kind of been reading the books for a while and watching the videos and the websites. And how do we get started on this? And really, what we need are three things from you. We need a floor plan concept, whether it be just a sketch on a napkin, or maybe you've got something done like I did on my first house, where we did what I call the cut and paste design, where we found a few different models we liked, and we liked the master bedroom in this one, we liked the garage on this one, we liked the great room here and the kids room on this side. And we just cut those things and pasted them all together, and before we sat down with the designer and said, this is kind of what we're thinking. What can we do? And most importantly, you got to have a budget. You got to have a target that we're looking to design to. Because if you say, well, we'll figure that out as we go, you'll find out you can run out, a lot quicker than you think. So we always want to have a target we can work with you on, because really everybody has a budget. Warren Buffett has a budget. It is a lot bigger than most of ours. But the thing is, when he goes to build something, he has to come up with a plan and design and put the numbers together to make sure it works before he spends his hard-earned money. And you should too. Remember, no more than 20 to 25% for your timber frame package towards that cost of that budget. Because really, when it comes down to it, we can put more into that, but you're going to end up short in the end. And that's the last thing we ever want to see. We don't want to see down the road you saying, well, we couldn't finish our basement, we couldn't put in our garage, and we don't have any porches now because we put too much into the house package. We want to make sure there's enough on there that you're able to complete the house you're looking for and be happy in it for generations. People we build for are our best salespeople. A lot of them during the process have gone through one of our open houses where our past clients have opened in their homes to them and said, come on in, check this out. We'll walk all through, 50 people through our house on a Saturday to show it off. We love doing that. They love showing their homes off. And if we did our job right and you're happy with everything at the end, you'll be one of those people. And that's our best salespeople, because, bring in and show a house like this, and you can tell that the homeowners are excited. They're happy to see us. They're happy to see you. It's a good experience all the way around. How does that design flow work, and what do we need to do? Like I said, something as simple as these sketches right here could be a place to start. This one's kind of the classic example of starting on a napkin or a sheet of paper. Just kind of bubbling, we call it bubble drawings, is where you kind of put in where you want your kitchen, where do you want your great room, your bedrooms, how do you want this to lay out? Just something as simple as a sketch like this we can use to start with. And what we'll do is we kind of work up like something a little bit more legible, and something that has some dimensions we can actually work off of. You'll see on the left the little squares. Those squares is where the posts go for the timber frame. So you'll have to see how that timber frame is going to be laid out. We can take a design like this once we get it kind of sketched out and say, is this kind of what you had in mind? He said, yeah, we're heading in the right direction. Let's keep going, Dave. So what we do from there is we'll go into 3D design and start designing this out. And once we get the floor plan worked out and can do a quick elevation, we can lay out that timber frame so you'll see exactly what it's going to look like on the inside, that skeleton of that, before we ever fire up a saw. Okay, so it's just early on in the design process. We can make sure that we're keeping you in line and with your budget, keeping you on track with what you want it to look like. And if this works out, then we can go into 3D design, give you a much better look when you start putting on the colors, adding the stonework to it, getting an idea of what it looks like, and then over to the right, you'll see the install for it. Okay, there again, of course, this is during the design process and very early, but you can kind of really see how it took shape and turned out like the drawings. And the neat thing about these 3D drawings like this, we can do through SketchUp. You can walk around the house. You can fly over top of it. You can walk around from room to room and see what the view looks like in that particular room. So pretty neat system they've come up with, and really technology's come a long ways in the last 20 years I've been doing this. Okay. Really, the next steps are, if we can help you with anything, sketch up a floor plan, or you have something you like the looks of, my email is dave@timbercraft.com. Please send it to me. I'd be glad to look it over and say, hey, that's kind of cool. That reminds me of the Smith's house we did in Indiana last year. I can send you over some of their information, show what this house looked like, and give us a place to start. if you got enough information, we can put together a 3D model for you and start, figuring the pricing with T&G, with the SIP walls and roofs, and make sure that we're starting before we even really start design, really working in that budget for you. Because really, we want to talk about, we want this to make this work. There again, if you like us on Facebook, you'll see current projects coming up and going on. We put it in there as we're cutting them and pre-fit them in the shop. You'll see some of those. You'll see them out on site. You'll see some finished homes. And really, it's a great place to go see a lot of cool stuff. You can go back for years and see some of our past projects and that. And to this point is really where we're kind of wrapping it up for this presentation. I'm going to send it back to Amanda to start maybe check in with you and see what kind of questions you have, and we'll see if we can answer some of those for you tonight. If for some reason we get all the way through this and we didn't get time to get your questions answered, don't worry. Please just drop me an email or give me a phone call. There again, you saw those numbers right there, and I'll be glad to talk with you on it and take some time personally. Maybe come out and see your place and get you started on your dream of a timber frame home. So without any further ado, Amanda, what kind of questions do we have?
Thank you, Dave. That was a great presentation. We are going to take some time to answer questions now. We'll get Dave back in here. And just a reminder, there is a questions panel in your, questions section, sorry, of your control panel. And you can use that area to ask us questions this evening. And we'll get going here. Dave, you ready?
Sure.
Awesome, awesome. All right, first question. What type of timbers do you use and why?
Well, we use several different types of timbers depending on the style and the species of wood you prefer. By far, our most prevalent is Douglas fir. Douglas fir comes in from the West Coast. It's the strongest timber you can use for timber framing, and personally, it's my favorite because it's light, it's easy to work with, and it stays beautiful for a long time. If you like something a little more rustic, you can go with a box tart wood, which could be Doug fir, it could be oak. In some cases, pine, though we don't do much pine just because the strength ratio compared to an oak or a Doug fir is just not there with pine, and you have to have a lot more percent to support that.
Great, thank you. Let's look here. You mentioned level of finishes. What is included, or what do you mean by level of finishes?
Well, everybody has a different idea of what is important to them for their finishes. And really it kind of starts, I tell people, start by looking around your own house you're living in now. If you're living in a house that's got, high-end sub-zero appliances, and you've got 3-inch thick granite countertops and Spanish marble along the backsplash and that you're going to be a high-end finish type of person. And some people are a little more, we're a little more moderate than that, and they like nice finishes, but they don't have to have the best finishes. And they're looking for ways to build the house they want to build. They can be a little more cost effective with using good quality appliances, good quality finishes, but just not going to the most expensive.
All right, thank you. Is Timbercraft just a materials company, or do you offer a package where you are the contractor and builder as well?
Great question there. Our core business is the design, the fabrication, and pre-fit of the timber frames, and then we can send a crew out to put them up for you as well. We've done general contracting in the past for years. It's cost effective if you're within an hour or so of where we're from. Otherwise, having us on site for 2 to 3 weeks, just completely shelling the house and get it going, it can be very cost effective. If we're there for 9 more months doing all the finished things that a local general contractor can do, and you're putting up our guys in hotels and paying them per diems, it just really is not cost effective. So we like to work with the local general contractors. We help train them. Seems like after we get a home go up in a certain area, we always pick up 2 or 3 more, because the general contractor will put these pictures on their website. They'll show it off, maybe do some open houses and kind of spread the word, and we end up going back for more.
All right. And is the cost of transportation involved or included in your packages?
It is involved. We don't include it in our packages, if you will, simply because it's not a fair way to do things for you. If we threw us a number in as a budgetary number for everybody in the United States, if you live close by, you're going to spend less. Okay, if you're farther away, you're going to spend a little bit more. But really, when it comes down to it, the cost of shipping in the process of this house is very, very, very minimal. It's I'd say in most cases it's just less than 1%.
All right. So on that note, let's shift into what is included in a Timbercraft package.
Sure. Like I said, we typically can either start from scratch for the design, or you can come in with a drawing from a designer or an architect, and we can work with that. If we start from scratch, we're typically a little more cost effective because we're designing to an ends to make this timber frame work. And we're focusing on designing to meet that budget. Because as I said a few times in the presentation, you know, if we can't design you a house that you can afford to build, nobody wins. And you know, so that's really right up front. We want to be real straight with you, talk about cost and your expectations, and do everything we can to help you with that. But we don't want to put you in a situation where you can't afford to finish this house. So our primary package is design, fabrication, the tongue and groove over top of the ceilings and maybe on the loft floors and such, and the SIP panels for walls and roofs. So essentially the shell.
Great, thanks, Dave. All right, this is a long one. Be ready.
Yeah.
Is the reason the SIPs are more competitive now driven by the cost of labor and because stick building have gone up more than the materials have increased? How much have the material costs for the SIPs changed in the past year? I'm not even sure I read that correctly, but do you
that's a great question. Really, it's a two-sided sword with stick building, because the material we talked about earlier have gone up tremendously. Okay, labor's gone up. Right now, they say that there's basically about a 58% deficit in the labor force for construction. So that means that we could use another 58% more on top of what we have just to build all the projects that are going on right now. So with supply and demand, just like the materials, when people are busy, they start throwing out larger numbers because, you know, sometimes they don't necessarily want the job. So they'll throw a number out that is meant to scare you away, and then you come back and say, yeah, I'll take it. You know, and they're happy. So it's tough right now. Like I said, it's tough because, you know, those costs are elevated more than I've ever seen them. SIPs, on the other hand, we've had about a 80 cent per square foot increase, which is about 10%. So that's really minimal compared to the 180 we saw on just the stick frame materials. So like I said, I've been doing SIPs for a long time, done just shy of 300 projects, and it's always been an upsell. It's always been a premium product because the people that see the SIPs and realize, wow, you know, these things are stronger, they're more energy efficient, they're quieter, they go up in half the time, you know, they hold up well during hurricanes and tornadoes and, you know, earthquakes even. So I mean, they're phenomenally strong, and it's always been a premium product. But now the numbers I'm seeing for stick framing, sometimes my SIP numbers are coming in even better. So yeah, we're really excited at this point.
Great information. All right, this listener says, I know there's probably a huge range, but on average, how long does a middle of the road timber frame home take to complete the building process?
Okay, yeah, that's good. From the time that we deliver our product onto the site, an average home, we're typically there anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks if it's a large home. 10 to 15 days is mostly, you know, probably 80% of our homes. And then for the complete finish of the rest of it, it's just like any other house. So typically, I would say your average is going to be anywhere from 6 to 9 months. If you've got a lot of high-end materials, it could go a little longer or anything specialty. But, you know, just by using SIPs, you eliminate, you know, the insulators come in, you're making life easier on the electrician because there's chases in there or conduit, depending on which SIP you're using. And the windows and doors are already bucked out. So, I mean, it does help speed up the process. I'd say easily it cuts a month off of what would be normal process for stick building versus a SIP house. But I think you're still going to have 6 to 9 months for most people.
Great, thank you. Does Timbercraft facilitate structural engineering of frames to comply with local building code qualifications?
Absolutely. That's one of the things we always pride ourselves on is part of the design process is we're going to reach out to your local building authority and we're going to find out about your snow loads. We're going to find out about your seismic conditions, wind loads. You know, like I said, we build throughout the country and sometimes throughout the whole world. And every situation is different. So we have to design those to make that work. And so one of our first calls is going to be to that building inspector where you're building and get the design criteria, and also to see if they're going to require full engineer stamp drawings. In a lot of cases, you know, timber frames and SIPs are much more mainstream than it used to be 20 years ago, where at that time every building inspector wanted a stamp set of drawings because they just didn't understand them and they wanted to be able to, you know, cover their heinies, if you will, for the risk. And so they'd always say stamp the drawings. Nowadays, we're starting to see, you know, they've seen more of them out there. They're understanding the SIPs and the strength of those as well. And I think we're seeing a lot more of building inspectors are not requiring that we have to engineer them. Now, certain areas you do, seismic zones, high wind zones, heavy snow loads, still do. But I would say in probably 80% of our projects, we don't have to have them stamped.
Good info. What are your thoughts about ICFs?
Okay, ICFs is a great system. ICFs is kind of like a reverse SIP. Instead of having the solid foam core in the center, it has two layers on the outside with the protecting that solid concrete on the inside. And it really performs well. I think that there's several systems out there that really work out well. And ICS is definitely one for finished basements because you can, once you put the ICF up, you can actually attach right to, usually most of them have every 8 inches, they have a band built into them that you can screw to put on your drywall or your tongue and groove in the basement. They just help simplify things. But they're definitely a premium product, but they work out really well and efficient.
All right, we've got another SIP question here. Is Timbercraft manufacturing SIPs with polyurethane as an upgrade to the polystyrene?
Good question. We actually use both types of SIPs. In different areas of the country, there's different zones that require more. So depending on where you're building, in some cases, the building departments would rather see polyurethane, or sometimes they'd rather see the EPS. So we like the urethane personally because it has a higher R value per inch. Plus, we can all design in the boxes and the conduits, all the headers, all the structural posts inside the panels to start with, and they're already bucked out around the windows and doors. So it really helps speed up the building process with that style. But in some areas of the country, they prefer the EPS. So we always have the opportunity to do both, and can chat with you about that depending on where you're building and what your preferences are.
Great. We're past the top of the hour here, Dave, so we'll probably take a couple more questions before we call it for the evening. What savings can be realized if you build up versus out? Okay.
I don't really have an exact percentage, but I'll tell you what, here's a good way to look at it. If you're building a 2,000 square foot home, it's a ranch style, and you decide you want to maybe take that into a story and a half or a 2-story, shrink down that first floor to 1,000 square feet and the second one to 1,000 square feet, you've eliminated all that, half of that cost for the foundation and half of that cost for the roofing by taking half of that square footage out of there. Now you still have the same siding and wall materials and such, but it definitely makes it more cost effective. And one thing for sure, for people that are on a budget and they're looking, especially if this is going to be a retirement home and it's primarily going to be, dad and mom and kids come join you every few months, or the grandkids come over. We're designing a lot of ranch style homes that are built on one floor, but they'll have a loft up in there, maybe for a sleeping loft or for the grandkids. And then by taking and finishing out a basement, you can have additional rooms down there. You zone the heat and cooling for them, so you're not heating them all the time when you don't need to, and it just keeps it more cost effective if you're on a fixed budget.
Great, thanks. Back to SIPs. Do SIPs vent VOCs?
Good question. Years ago, the SIPs would have had quite a bit of off-gassing. That's been changed since then. That's been outlawed by the government. But one thing that I didn't mention in this, because we didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of SIPs, but SIPs, like I like to refer to them as like living inside a Yeti cooler. Okay, they're super, super tight, super, super insulated. They work as well for heating as they do for cooling. Okay, but the one thing is, because they're so tight, you gotta have an air exchanger bringing fresh air in and taking the moisture out. Okay, it's like the old adage: if you go and you pull your cooler out of the garage and you left water in it last year and you see mold in it, it's actually the water inside there and it being trapped in there has caused that molding action. You can build a house too tight if you don't have an air exchanger in it. It can cause mold problems just by showers and cooking. But like I said, this time in building, all 50 states are requiring the commercial buildings have air exchange units built into them. And I think we're up to about 14 or 15 in residential that require that as well. And I think you'll see all 50 go that way in the next few years, because it's a healthier way to live. You're building a tighter house, trying to keep it more energy efficient, and it keeps the moisture out and the fresh air in.
Thank you, Dave. We still got some great questions coming in. We'll take a few more here, and then as a reminder to everyone still hanging on, enter your questions and/or reach out to Dave personally. His contact information is on the screen, but also if you put them in the question panel right now, we'll have those for Dave and team to follow up on too. All right, a couple more here, Dave. Any comments about timber frames built in high wind load areas, maybe such as hurricane areas?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Probably 95% of the timber frames built throughout the United States are enclosed in SIP panels. And that's a huge thing, especially in high wind areas, because SIPs themselves are so much, like 5 times stronger than stick building. By the time you add a timber frame into it, it's almost like building a castle. I mean, basically our timber frames are engineered at 3 times the load that they need to be structurally. So a factor of 3. Then you take that and you wrap that with these super strong SIPs. Like I said, it's like building a fortress.
Great. All right, last question for this evening. If we've seen a timber frame style we like online, can we email that over and see what you think about it for floor plans?
Absolutely. No, we love that, because like I said, we've been doing this a long time, and a lot of, I usually the way I start out with people is say, if you've got any inspiration photos, if you've got any pictures and things. Years ago, we used to always say, put them in a 3-ring binder, and you come in and sit down with the designer, and we'll start kind of getting a feel for what your flavors are, or what things you like. Nowadays, Houzz and Pinterest have made life so much easier that you can just go on there, create a little account, click on anything you like the looks of, and throw it into that folder, and then all you have to do is hit the share button and put my email on it, and it'll send it 120 pictures over to me. So, I mean, that's really helps our designers kind of get in your head with what is important to you and the kind of things that make this a custom home that you've designed, that you've wanted. And like I said, it really helps us a lot. So we would highly recommend that. Also, a lot of times I'll get something in, someone will send in a picture and say, I kind of like the looks of this one here, but I'd like something a little smaller or a little bigger. And, I can go back over the last 23 years and say, wow, that looks like the Smith project we did back in 06, or that looks like, Lopez's project we did last year, and then show you maybe some 3D drawings or some renderings or some pictures we've done, and just to kind of make sure we're in the right frame of mind and helping you design a house that's exactly what you want it to be.
Awesome. Dave, thanks for the great information tonight. We hope that everyone out there enjoyed the presentation. As a reminder, we will be sending out an email tomorrow that has a link to the recording of this event so that you can view that as well and share it. So on behalf of Timbercraft and Timber Home Living, we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you for all the questions. You had some great questions, and I'd love to hear from anybody that has any more. Just give us an email, drop us a line. We'll be glad to chat with you about it.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Having a good night.
Thanks, Amanda. You too now.